No dropping out takes every failure in modern education, locks it inside one classroom, and sends in a 35-year-old woman with a sports car and no patience for excuses. It is blunt, melodramatic, and sometimes absurd, but its sharpest target is not teenage cruelty. It is every adult who finds that cruelty easier to manage than confront. At Kunikida High School, a new transfer student walks into Class 3A and announces that she wants to make 100 friends. The class laughs because the student is Ayako Baba, a 35-year-old woman wearing the same uniform as a room full of teenagers. Their reaction is cruel, but it also reflects the structure of the school. Kunikida High is ruled by an unofficial caste system. Tier 1 students occupy empty rooms, disrupt classes, and move through the hallways as if they own the building. Teachers ask their permission before stopping a fight. Tier 2 students receive ordinary treatment, but only as long as they never challenge Tier 1. Tier 3 students are barely treated as people. They cannot remain in the classroom during breaks, speak freely to higher-ranked classmates, or trust that anyone will remember their names. Some students have already stopped attending because of the pressure. Others protect themselves by pretending that isolation is a choice. The bullies keep the system running, but teachers, parents, and silent witnesses all help preserve it. Ayako arrives at the opening ceremony in an expensive sports car. Students assume she must be a teacher, while the faculty assume she is somebody's mother. Principal Yoshio Noda finally explains that she is a transfer student sent through the education board. Ayako dropped out years ago and now wants to finish high school, but even Noda knows little more than her age and name. The teachers immediately label her a problem. Junchi Koizumi, the nervous new homeroom teacher for Class 3A, is ordered to take responsibility for her. When Ayako introduces herself, the students use her surname as a joke because Baba sounds like an insult for an old woman. She ignores them and handles every academic question with ease. During a break, Ayako finds Tier 1 boys forcing weaker students to buy worthless event tickets. She calls the police because she sees the scheme for what it is: extortion disguised as school business. Instead of punishing the boys, the administrators scold Ayako for damaging Kunikida High's reputation. Superintendent Yukinobu Asada happens to be inspecting the campus when the police arrive, and Noda is terrified that the education board will discover how badly the school is managed. Ayako is warned to stop interfering. She apologizes, but only because the adults have made it clear that protecting the school's image matters more than protecting its students. At lunch, Ayako tries to join several groups. Each group moves away before she can sit down, and the Tier 1 girls openly tell her to leave. She ends up eating alone. Then she remembers seeing another girl slipping through the hallway as if she were hiding. Ayako finds Rina Hasegawa eating inside a restroom stall. Rina has no one to sit with, but being seen alone would advertise her low status. Hiding in the restroom lets her pretend that she has chosen privacy. Ayako innocently asks whether eating there is enjoyable, and two students overhear the conversation. By the time Rina returns to class, everyone knows. The bullies call her the restroom queen and joke that she has found a private dining room without rent. Rina runs out in humiliation. Koizumi later explains the practice to Ayako. Students who have been isolated sometimes hide during lunch because public loneliness feels more painful than the isolation itself. He also warns Ayako that exposing Rina's secret may damage her pride so badly that she stops coming to school. The warning arrives too late. Rina stays home the next day, and her parents claim she is sick. Ayako and Koizumi visit after school, but Rina locks herself in her room. When her parents overhear them mention the restroom lunches, they are confused. Rina has always described school as a happy place filled with friends. Rina opens the door only to stop them from worrying. She promises to return the next morning, but Ayako notices marks that suggest Rina has been struggling with thoughts of harming herself. Rina angrily sends everyone away. Rina was once an excellent student. After failing an entrance examination, she ended up at Kunikida High and treated that result as a personal disgrace. She concealed the bullying because her parents already argued over her future. When they finally learn that she has been suffering, they do not comfort her first. They blame each other and begin discussing divorce. Listening from her room, Rina decides that every disaster is her fault. If she had passed the examination, she would never have entered this school. Her parents would not be fighting, and nobody would be talking about separation. For one terrifying moment, she believes disappearing would solve all of their problems. She stops herself, then returns to school the next day and pretends nothing happened. At lunch, Rina hides in the same restroom. This time, Ayako sits in the neighboring stall and eats with her. Ayako does not lecture her. She simply shares the humiliation until Rina no longer has to face it alone. Rina finally laughs, and the two walk back to class together. The relief lasts only a few seconds. The bullies have placed a toilet seat on Rina's chair and covered her desk with degrading jokes. Rina shouts that she would rather eat in a restroom than sit beside people this cruel, then runs away. The scene awakens memories Ayako has tried to bury. She follows Rina and discovers her in another dangerous emotional crisis. Ayako pounds on the locked door with a fire extinguisher until the noise draws half the school. She reaches Rina before the girl can hurt herself. Rina insists that the choice is hers and tells Ayako to stop interfering. But Ayako knows that Rina has been turning other people's cruelty into evidence against herself. Rina finally admits that she blames herself for the failed exam, the bullying, and her parents' collapsing marriage. Ayako brings her back to her parents and refuses to let the family continue speaking around the truth. Rina explains that their refusal to blame her only made her blame herself. Her parents reveal that they reached the opposite conclusion. They thought their arguments had pushed Rina into despair, so they believed divorce might protect her. All three have been trying to sacrifice themselves without asking what the others actually need. Once they finally speak, honestly, Rina's father holds her and begs her never to disappear. Her mother apologizes, and the family realizes that silence created the crisis each of them was trying to prevent. The next day, Rina brings lunch to the rooftop and asks Ayako to forgive her. More importantly, she asks to become Ayako's first friend. Ayako has entered school promising to find 100. Now she finally has one. Soon afterward, Ayako's strong performance makes her class representative. While sorting notes from a student suggestion box, she finds a message containing only 3 words: "Please help me." Koizumi assumes it is a prank and leaves Ayako to handle it. But after what happened to Rina, Ayako refuses to treat an anonymous plea as harmless. Somewhere in class 3A, another student is asking for rescue while pretending everything is fine. Ayako begins by asking every student whether the message belongs to them. Koizumi pulls her aside and explains that a bullied teenager will not confess simply because an adult asks in public. He orders her to stop stirring up trouble. Ayako responds by contacting every parent in the class. The next morning, furious families flood the school demanding answers. The administration apologizes for the panic, but Ayako has made one fact impossible to ignore. The message came from someone whom the adults have failed to see. She begins watching AI Yamashita. AI runs errands for Tier 1 girls, pays for their food, and laughs whenever they humiliate her. Ayako suspects that AI wrote the plea for help. AI insists that she is not being bullied. She claims she chooses to let the others tease her because that is how their friendship works. That evening, AI approaches a staircase and deliberately steps into empty space. Ayako happens to be nearby and rides with her to the hospital. Inside AI's bag, she notices handwriting that matches the anonymous message. AI escapes with minor injuries and again denies that anything is wrong. Her classmates visit, joke with her, and leave satisfied because she smiles at the correct moments. Rina tells Ayako that AI did not always behave this way. She has been forcing herself into the group because being exploited feels safer than being alone. Rina follows the girls after school and overhears their next demand. They want AI to steal a stranger's wallet so they can pay for a celebration. Ayako intercepts the theft, takes the wallet, and tries to return it. The owner mistakes Ayako for the thief, while AI returns to the group empty-handed and is punished for failing. The girls then order AI to steal a shirt. This time, AI is caught by the police. Her father arrives and immediately scolds her in public. He is a teacher, but his first concern is not why his daughter stole. He worries that the scandal will make him look incapable of educating his own child. The next day, he forces AI to apologize before the entire class. Ayako produces the anonymous note and asks AI to admit that she wrote it. AI denies it, so Ayako compares the note with her journal and reveals that the same fingerprints appear on both. The class accuses Ayako of faking the evidence. She answers with store footage showing AI stealing directly in front of an employee, almost as if she wanted to be stopped. Ayako explains that AI was not simply stealing for her friends. She was trying to create a crisis serious enough that someone would finally ask why she was suffering. AI's father demands to know who bullied her. Ayako tells him that he is one of the people responsible. He has protected his reputation, ignored AI's feelings, and responded to every warning with public discipline. He insists that nobody knows his daughter better than he does, but Ayako points out that this certainty is exactly why AI could never speak to him. Students in AI's position often survive by renaming abuse. They call it teasing, friendship, or a joke because admitting that they are victims may invite worse treatment. AI has spent so long performing happiness that everyone accepted the performance as truth. At last, AI admits that she has been bullied. She also says that the past no longer has to define her because she now has better friends. When she returns to school, she stops wearing the heavy makeup the girls preferred and no longer forces herself to laugh for their approval. Her relationship with her father begins to improve. Ayako, Rina, and AI become a close group, though AI still has the habit of volunteering for every small errand. Then she reveals something disturbing about the staircase. AI did consider stepping off, but someone behind her gave the final push. Before they can identify that person, another conflict erupts. Ryota Otake and Teppei Sagusa perform music together after school and appear inseparable. By the next morning, Ryota is cutting Teppei's hair in front of the class while Tier 1 watches for entertainment. Ayako triggers the fire alarm, drawing the teachers before the humiliation can go further. She then learns that the school ranking site has demoted Teppei to Tier 3. The change gives every higher-ranked student permission to mistreat him. The argument began after one of their street performances. Teppei suddenly proposed ending their band and said he wanted to become a model. Ryota assumed Teppei was abandoning him to climb into Tier 1. Hurt and angry, Ryota pretended that he had wanted to quit too and insulted Teppei's guitar playing. When Tier 1 students learn about Teppei's modeling dream, they mock his appearance. Teppei assumes Ryota exposed him as revenge. Ayako urges both boys to talk, but neither wants to risk hearing that the friendship really is over. The caste system turns their misunderstanding into public sport. Ryota humiliates Teppei to show Tier 1 that he understands the rules. Then the same bullies suddenly defend Teppei, not because they care, but because Ryota has become too comfortable controlling the entertainment. Encouraged by the crowd, Teppei retaliates. Each boy begins performing cruelty that neither originally wanted. AI explains that Ryota and Teppei also fought when they first met. That fight ended only when they finally spoke honestly, and the honesty created their friendship. She asks Ayako to help them do it again. Ayako consults school counselor Akari Nagamine over drinks. Akari recognizes that Ayako is not merely worried about two classmates. Ayako once lost someone she trusted after feeling betrayed, and the old wound makes this conflict personal. Akari explains that people trying to protect each other can create especially painful misunderstandings because neither person admits what he is afraid of losing. The next day, Ayako sends Ryota a fake challenge supposedly written by Teppei. Then, she gives Teppei an identical note. Both arrive at a school storage room demanding answers, and their argument immediately turns physical. Ayako enters after they have exhausted themselves and orders them to explain the beginning, not merely repeat the insults that followed. Teppei finally admits that he wanted to dissolve the band because he believed his weak guitar playing would hold Ryota back. Ryota reveals that he mentioned Teppei's modeling dream only because a Tier 1 student's older brother works in fashion and might have helped him. Both boys were trying to support the other, but pride translated support into rejection. Ayako reminds them that betrayal by someone trusted hurts more than ordinary hostility. If they continue obeying the class atmosphere, the ranking site will decide what their friendship means. Ryota and Teppei reconcile and stop caring whether the site places them in Tier 2 or Tier 3. When Masamitsu Tsuchiya and his Tier 1 group try to threaten them with another ranking change, the boys simply walk away together. Their refusal enrages Masamitsu. Ayako has now helped several students ignore the hierarchy, so Tier 1 decides to punish her through a teacher who has already learned to fear them. Tier 1 approaches social studies teacher Takashi Saruwatari and gives him a note. During the next test, Masamitsu and the others keep signaling until Saruwatari walks past Ayako's desk, bends down, and pretends to discover a cheat sheet. Another student notices the setup. The class cannot understand why a teacher who once cared deeply about them now obeys the students who disrupt his lessons. Teppei remembers the old Saruwatari. When Teppei struggled academically, the teacher encouraged him, exchanged journals with him, and made him believe he could improve. Saruwatari changed during their second year, after Tier 1 students openly destroyed one of his lessons. He tried to discipline them, but Vice Principal Makio Ninagawa entered, ignored the cause of the chaos, and blamed the teacher for failing to control the room. Humiliated in front of the class, Saruwatari punched a window. That outburst became a permanent stain on his record and taught him that opposing Tier 1 could cost him his career. Ayako, Ryota, Teppei, Rina, and AI tell Saruwatari that they remember the teacher he used to be. Teppei admits that Saruwatari once restored his desire to learn. Their faith moves him, and he decides to resist. In the next lesson, the Tier 1 boys again talk, throw things, and ignore every instruction. Saruwatari orders them into the hallway. They immediately complain to Ninagawa, claiming they were studying peacefully when an unstable teacher expelled them. They threaten to contact the education board if the school refuses to punish him. Ninagawa again sides with the students. Other teachers pile their unfinished work onto Saruwatari and mock him in the faculty room. Now the vice principal pressures him to resign. Kunikida High does not have only a student caste system. The adults have built one of their own, and Saruwatari occupies its lowest tier. Ayako and Teppei worry that he is near his limit, so they follow him after work. On a bus, several girls accuse Saruwatari of touching them inappropriately. He is carrying 3 heavy bags with both hands, but nobody pauses to examine whether the accusation is physically possible. At the police station, Saruwatari denies everything. Ninagawa bows and apologizes on his behalf anyway. The vice principal explains that a quick admission will prevent a scandal, as if protecting the institution matters more than destroying an innocent man's name. Saruwatari is forced to apologize to the faculty the next morning. When he enters class, the students have covered the board with reports about the accusation. Tier 1 leads a chant demanding that he go home. Ninagawa appears and again tells him to resign. Saruwatari reaches toward the window in despair, but Teppei stops him and begs him not to surrender. Teppei wants the brave teacher from his first year to return. Unfortunately, the appeal lands as another burden on a man who already believes he has failed everyone. Soon afterward, Saruwatari jumps from a school window. Teppei blames himself, while Ayako suffers nightmares connected to her own past. Akari reminds Ayako that Saruwatari's devotion to his students did not simply vanish. Something at the school pushed him to the edge. The administration tries to cut him loose before he can recover. Noda and Ninagawa claim that he acted because his misconduct had been exposed. At a press conference, Ninagawa condemns Saruwatari as though the case has already been proven. Ayako and Teppei interrupt the conference. Ayako points out that Saruwatari had a bag in each hand and a third hanging with them during the bus incident. When Ninagawa suggests that he carried all 3 in one hand, Teppei attempts the same feat and cannot lift them. The accusation was never investigated because the school preferred a convenient confession. Ninagawa changes tactics. He claims the students drove Saruwatari to the window and produces examples of classroom harassment. Ayako agrees that the students caused pain, but she refuses to let the faculty erase its own behavior. Saruwatari was bullied by teachers as well as teenagers. She reads from the journal found in his bag. Saruwatari began the year determined to teach well, but colleagues constantly assigned him their work until he had no time to prepare. When students lost interest, he blamed himself. Even then, he drew strength from the few who still trusted him. After the bus accusation, the school treated him as guilty, told him to resign, and made him an enemy in the faculty room. Yet his journal does not condemn the students. He writes that caring for them remains his responsibility. His final entry admits that he no longer knows whether he has the strength to continue. The class hears his words and realizes that Saruwatari never stopped worrying about them. Ayako tells the assembled media that adults who shift every failure onto children have abandoned the purpose of teaching. Ninagawa has no answer and finally lowers his head. Saruwatari survives. His students visit the hospital and tell him they are waiting for his lessons. He promises to return, and their relief restores a small part of the confidence the school took from him. The next crisis arrives with the cultural festival. Recent scandals have placed Noda's job at risk, so he orders every class to produce an impressive event. Each receives 50,000 yen. Koizumi asks for a student leader. Ayako volunteers, but he believes the project will work only if Tier 1 cooperates. Rikako Hattori raises her hand, and everyone follows because her rank gives the decision authority. The class chooses a haunted house and begins making decorations. Tier 1 students sit aside while everyone else works. Ayako asks why they receive the easiest part simply because they occupy the highest rank. Rikako explodes. She grabs a craft knife and slashes her own uniform, declaring that she never wanted the responsibility. Then she leaves with the festival money. Masamitsu and the other Tier 1 students withdraw as well. Koizumi finally learns what happened. The class is now divided, the budget is gone, and the one student who understood how to make everyone participate has vanished. With no money for the haunted house, Ryota and Teppei suggest performing music. The class expands that idea into a choir, and Mai Yuki volunteers to lead. At first, Koizumi is relieved. Without Tier 1, the remaining students seem more cooperative. But Mai lacks the authority and patience to organize them. During rehearsal, her piano playing repeatedly breaks the rhythm. When classmates offer corrections, she takes them as attacks. Everyone grows afraid to speak, and each failed attempt makes the room more resentful. Ryota and Teppei ask Koizumi to bring Rikako back. She accompanied the class the previous year and knew how to control the tempo. Rina and AI object. They have spent years being mistreated by Tier 1, and they do not want to invite one of its leaders back the moment a problem appears. Koizumi tracks Rikako to a hostess club. She has become one of the club's most popular workers even though she is still a student. Rikako explains that she needs money because she has become addicted to spending time at a host club. There, paid attention gives her a place to release the pressure she never admits at school. Koizumi cannot persuade her to return. Back at rehearsal, the choir continues collapsing. Students walk out. Mai finally quits, and Noda threatens to cancel Class 3A's festival project rather than risk another public embarrassment. The class asks Ayako to find Rikako. Rina and AI warn that they will end their friendship with Ayako if she helps someone who helped enforce the caste system. Ayako is caught between loyalty to the friends who suffered and responsibility to a class that still needs Rikako. Then Rikako approaches Ayako for a loan because she owes more money at the host club. Ayako agrees only if Rikako returns to school. Rikako finally explains why the accusation of laziness hurt so much. Tier 2 and Tier 3 students complain that Tier 1 controls every activity. Yet whenever responsibility appears, most of them lower their eyes and wait for someone else to accept it. Rikako repeatedly steps forward because nobody else will. Her rank gives her power, but it also makes her the person blamed when the class fails. They clear up the misunderstanding, and Rikako promises to return. The next day, however, Ayako waits at school and she never arrives. Rina and AI learn that Ayako met her and feel betrayed. Mai also approaches Ayako, admitting that she could not lead the choir and asking her to bring Rikako back. Inside Rikako's damaged uniform, Ayako finds detailed notes describing every student's strengths and assigning each person a useful job. Rikako was not improvising or doing nothing. She had planned the entire project while pretending the effort came naturally. Outside school, men connected to the host club abduct Rikako. They have treated her as a source of money and intend to extract whatever value remains. Koizumi finds them and tries to protect his student, but he is quickly overpowered. Ayako arrives, frees Rikako, and holds off the men long enough for police sirens to approach. After the attackers flee, Ayako slaps Rikako for breaking her promise to return. Rikako assumes the class only wants to exploit her rank again. Ayako gives back the planning notes. She apologizes for believing Rikako had an easy role and explains that the class does not need a Tier 1 symbol. It needs the person who understands how to bring its members together. For the first time, Rikako feels seen rather than merely obeyed. She returns the next day, admits taking and spending the 50,000 yen, and promises to repay it through legitimate work. With Rikako organizing the class, the students restore their original haunted house plan and complete it in time for the festival. Rina and AI apologize to Ayako for forcing her to choose between them and Rikako. They also begin accepting Rikako as a person separate from the rank she once held. The experience proves that Tier 1 students can carry their own pressures, even when those pressures do not excuse the harm they cause. The next conflict involves the girls' long-distance relay team. Mo Kokubun and Mitsuki Kudo are its strongest runners. Mitsuki is expected to earn a university sports recommendation if the team advances. Mo makes matching charms to celebrate their friendship and gives one to Mitsuki. Later, Mo collides with Ayako while buying lunch. When Ayako nearly steps on the fallen charm, Mo pushes her away and injures her ankle. Mo's mother, an influential politician, arrives and angrily blames Ayako. The injury keeps Mo out of the qualifying race, so Tier 2 student Hitomi Ito becomes the substitute runner. Mitsuki is now the only Tier 1 athlete carrying the team's expectations. At the race, Mitsuki creates a huge lead. The remaining runners only need to protect it. But Hitomi collapses from dehydration before the finish, and another school wins. Mitsuki loses the result tied to her university recommendation. Hitomi apologizes, but Mitsuki treats the failure as a personal attack. She hits Hitomi with her bag inside the team room. The matching charm falls to the floor. Mitsuki's movements knock over a locker, trapping and injuring Hitomi underneath. Mo hears the crash and enters. She sees Hitomi pinned down, but instead of helping, she hides. Ayako notices that the door has been blocked and calls coach Ryuichiro Kitajima. Together, they move the obstruction and rescue Hitomi. The school investigates, but Hitomi claims she fell accidentally. Ayako notices that the room was dark when she arrived. If Hitomi simply entered alone and stumbled, why did she not turn on the lights? Mo quickly provides an explanation, making Ayako more suspicious. Ayako later confronts Mo and Mitsuki with the broken charm found at the scene. Both deny knowing anything. Unable to explain the torn strap, Mo throws her own matching charm into a fire. Then she goes to Kitajima with Hitomi and confesses that she caused the injury. Hitomi supports the lie. If the incident is treated as team bullying, Mo may be suspended and the entire relay club may be dissolved. Mo privately explains that her mother's influence can reduce the consequences. She believes taking the blame will protect Mitsuki and the team. Before that plan can settle, Kitajima announces that he injured Hitomi during a personal dispute unrelated to the club. His lie protects the students and keeps the relay team from immediate punishment, but it makes him look like a violent coach. The administration accepts his resignation, and students who once respected him throw objects from an upper floor and demand that he leave. Only Mo knows that Kitajima is innocent. She cannot defend him without exposing Mitsuki and herself. Ayako returns to the dark team room and reconstructs the scene. The blocked door proves someone else remained inside after the locker fell. The charm identifies that person as Mo. Mo finally admits hiding behind the lockers. She still claims that she caused the original injury and ordered Kitajima to take responsibility, adding one lie after another to keep Mitsuki's name out of the investigation. The relay team is suspended before Ayako can expose the full truth. Kitajima apologizes to the members, only to learn that Mo and Mitsuki have both quit. He confronts Mo. Since both of them acted to protect the relay club, their anger eventually gives way to honesty. Mitsuki interrupts and calls their sacrifices pointless now that the team has already been punished. Mo finally stops shielding her. She explains that her confession was never simply about protecting Mitsuki. Mo and Hitomi agreed to hide the assault because both wanted to preserve the team they had spent 3 years building. Kitajima took the blame for the same reason. Mitsuki admits that she was the one who attacked Hitomi and knocked over the locker. Ayako tells her that Mo was protecting the team, not rewarding Mitsuki's rank. Even after hearing how much everyone sacrificed, Mitsuki refuses to apologize and walks away. Continued negotiations with the education board eventually save the relay club and clear Kitajima's name. Mitsuki, however, loses her Tier 1 status. The girls who once stood beside her now ignore her, and students from lower ranks begin returning the cruelty she once directed at them. Mitsuki asks to transfer schools because someone has been secretly photographing her in the changing room. She produces a stack of pictures and claims that Yuna Izumi has been following her for a month. Koizumi sees an opportunity to improve his professional reputation by holding a teen court inside Class 3A. Mitsuki becomes the plaintiff, Yuna the accused, and Ryo Akutsu quietly records the proceedings. After both sides argue, the class will decide the verdict by vote. Mitsuki says Yuna has always disliked her and recently pushed her down, causing the injury now covered by a bandage. Ayako asks why dislike proves that Yuna operated the camera. Mitsuki has suspicion, but no direct evidence. Koizumi searches the changing room and finds a hidden camera. Its files contain the invasive images, but they also include photographs of Yuna's cat. Yuna admits the animal is hers and still denies placing the camera. Ayako remembers decorative objects sitting on the cabinet where the device was supposedly hidden. A teacher removed them only 3 days earlier, meaning the camera could not have recorded from that location for an entire month. Mitsuki's timeline is impossible. Cornered, Mitsuki admits planting the camera and staging the accusation. Yuna recently discovered that Mitsuki did not live in the luxury apartment she described. Her family lived in an ordinary, modest home. When Tier 1 learned that she had lied to appear wealthy, the group rejected her. Mitsuki created a crime in which she could be the victim and Yuna the villain. Yuna also reveals that Mitsuki deliberately fell during their argument and blamed her for that injury. During a break, lower-ranked students shove Mitsuki and pour water on her in the restroom. She is experiencing the same social retaliation she once treated as normal. Instead of backing down, She returns to court and redirects the case toward Osamu Yukawa. Mitsuki and Osamu dated for 10 months. She recently saw him behaving intimately with Yuna and found messages arranging another meeting. When Mitsuki confronted him, Osamu focused on her looking at his phone and ended the relationship. Mitsuki now accuses him of betrayal and violence. The court must vote on whether Osamu is responsible. Tier 1 spends the night threatening classmates to choose not guilty. When Koizumi counts the ballots, the result is 13-13. One vote is missing because Ryo, the court recorder, has not yet participated. Masamitsu pressures him, but Ryo calmly selects guilty. Osamu loses 14-13. Tier 1 is furious, yet nobody understands how dangerous the silent student making the final decision will become. The class soon redirects its anger toward Koizumi. Posts on the school forum accuse him of favoring Tier 1. The complaints come mainly from Tier 2 and Tier 3. They provide examples. When Tier 1 students disrupt class, Koizumi often scolds lower-ranked students instead. He criticizes a Tier 3 student for turning in imperfect homework, then smiles when a Tier 1 student has done none. He cannot even remember some lower-ranked names. Hitomi agrees to help the students retaliate. She tells Koizumi that a man has been following her after school and asks the teacher to pretend to be her boyfriend until the stalker gives up. Koizumi believes the danger is real and agrees. As they walk home, Hitomi moves closer to him while somebody takes photographs from hiding. The next day, edited images appear on the school forum, making the teacher and student look like a couple. More photographs show them passing a hotel. Koizumi initially dismisses the posts as another childish prank. At lunch, Hitomi gives him a handmade meal and behaves as if their fake relationship were real. Koizumi returns the food and insists that they maintain distance before the rumor becomes worse. Hitomi reacts as though he has rejected her entire reason for living. That evening, an anonymous message appears on the forum announcing that someone plans to die inside the empty school. Mai suspects Hitomi because she disappeared after lunch and will not answer her phone. Koizumi thinks the threat may be an overreaction or a prank, but he and Ayako search the campus anyway. Other students later report seeing Hitomi upstairs. They find her preparing to harm herself and intervene. Hitomi blames Koizumi's rejection. He apologizes for speaking harshly, and she clings to him while others record the moment. The next morning, footage of the embrace appears online. It is posted beside an older video from Koizumi's previous school, where another female student held him in a similar situation. That scandal cost him his former job and forced him to transfer to Kunikida High. Faced with the same accusation again, Koizumi loses control. He assumes Tier 2 and Tier 3 arranged everything because they were present during the rescue. When they deny it, he accuses Hitomi directly. Mai produces Koizumi's personal notes showing that he once dreamed of becoming an athlete rather than a teacher. The students use the entry to claim he never wanted to lead them. Surrounded by accusations, Koizumi insults the lower-ranked students and storms out. His reaction appears to prove their case, but Ayako recognizes fear beneath the anger. Koizumi is not simply protecting Tier 1. He is reliving a trap that already destroyed one teaching position. At Koizumi's former school, a Tier 2 student confessed romantic feelings to him. When he refused, she threatened to jump from the rooftop. Koizumi approached to protect her, and she suddenly embraced him. Other students emerged with cameras. The crisis had been staged because they wanted to drive away another homeroom teacher. Since then, Koizumi has viewed lower-ranked students as especially dangerous. They will not confront Tier 1 openly, so he believes they use rumors, secret recordings, and victimhood to attack from behind. He still wants to teach, but he no longer knows how to trust the students asking for his protection. Hitomi tries to apologize, and he walks away. Ayako later learns that the stalker following Hitomi is real. The request for Koizumi's help began honestly, but an anonymous note instructed her to turn the situation into a scandal. Each new demand became harder to refuse, and someone else uploaded the most damaging recordings. Tier 1 is also disturbed. Masamitsu, Osamu, and Ren did not organize the campaign, yet somebody has manipulated the entire class without their permission. They lock the doors, gather the students in an unused room, and demand the mastermind's identity. When nobody confesses, intimidation turns physical. Rina secretly contacts Ayako and Koizumi. The adults rush back and stop the confrontation, but Hitomi has disappeared. Her real stalker has abducted her and taken her to the river. Despite everything Hitomi helped do to him, Koizumi refuses to abandon a student in danger. He cannot swim, but he enters the water to reach her. Ayako arrives, uses a rope to knock the attacker into the river, and keeps Koizumi and Hitomi from being dragged under. Police arrest the stalker. The rescue breaks the cycle of suspicion. Koizumi apologizes to Tier 2 and Tier 3 for judging them as a group, and the students acknowledge the trap they helped create. He returns as Class 3A's homeroom teacher. The person who directed Hitomi remains hidden. Ayako does not know that Ryo Akutsu has watched every incident from the edges of the room. He considers pushing Ayako from the school roof, but Rina and AI arrive before he acts. Ryo retreats and designs a larger experiment. Class 3A soon begins a 3-day survival camp. The students must surrender their phones, catch or gather their own food, cook their own rice, and vote after every meal for the person they consider least necessary. Each eliminated student will remain in a basement room until the trip ends. The class complains until Masamitsu accepts the challenge. During the first round, Ayako teaches everyone to fish, divides the work, and guides the class through a successful meal. Immediately afterward, Masamitsu orders the lower ranks to vote her out. Ayako becomes the first eliminated student. Without her leadership, dinner is nearly inedible, and the camp returns to Tier 1 control. Osamu later falls through a damaged section of the basement and lands beside Ayako. Believing nobody else can hear, he distances himself from Tier 1 and blames Masamitsu for Ayako's elimination. Ayako is unimpressed. Masamitsu is openly domineering, but at least he acts with conviction. Osamu hides behind him, says whatever prevents people from disliking him, and calls that survival. Ayako tells Osamu that pleasing the strongest person in the room does not make him loyal. It makes him a coward. The second vote eliminates Masamitsu after Tier 2 and Tier 3 secretly unite against him. When he enters the basement, Osamu is released and leaves without defending the friend he criticized. The following morning, somebody has destroyed most of the stored food and rice. With little left before the bus returns, the rules become harsher. 5 students will now be eliminated at a time, and those in the basement receive smaller portions. Koizumi later announces a revival game. The active students may nominate 2 eliminated players. The nominees' teams must carry water from the river and fill separate barrels. The first full barrel returns its candidate to the camp. Ayako and Masamitsu are selected. Only Rina, AI, Ryota, and Teppei openly support Ayako. Tier 1 chooses Masamitsu, while many others join his side because they fear what will happen after the game. The numerical advantage gives Masamitsu an early lead. Ayako's 4 supporters are exhausted, but they continue encouraging one another instead of assigning blame. On the next run, Mitsuki leaves Masamitsu's team and pours her water into Ayako's barrel. Masamitsu responds to fatigue by insulting everyone who slows down. Ayako's team responds by sharing the load. Students watching from the basement begin cheering for the people who once occupied the lowest ranks. The Tier 1 girls eventually switch sides as well. They claim they cannot ignore Ayako's tears, but their decision goes deeper. The contest has shown them which group behaves like friends when victory is uncertain. Elsewhere, lower-ranked boys finally resist Masamitsu's allies. Osamu initially runs away, then remembers Ayako calling him a coward. He returns and tries to stop the fight, knowing that both sides may turn on him. He is beaten, but for the first time he accepts pain to defend someone other than himself. Ayako's team completes the barrel and wins. Once she returns, the class works together and produces a full meal. Nearly everyone enjoys the final night, while Masamitsu walks home alone, convinced that Ayako has stolen his place. Back at school, the ranking site changes completely. Tier 3 students speak openly with former Tier 1 members. The camp has made the old hierarchy impossible to enforce. Then an anonymous envelope appears. It claims Ayako is Superintendent Asada's spy and that every student in Class 3A has been used in a human experiment. Photographs show Ayako meeting Asada in different locations. Masamitsu receives a map leading to Ayako's home, where he finds an old diary. At the same time, the class watches Asada announce a proposed education reform. He wants to abolish fixed homeroom classes because a case study suggests that student castes collapse when the classroom structure disappears. The announcement makes the accusation sound true. Masamitsu pours water over Ayako and tells the others that every crisis, rescue, and friendship may have been staged for research. Ayako admits that Asada arranged her enrollment, but she does not know why he used Class 3A's experience to justify this reform. Before she can contact him, Ryo appears behind her and calmly admits that he sent the letter. Ryo explains that the anonymous letter is only one part of his work. He exposed Rina's restroom lunches, pushed AI on the staircase, hired girls to frame Saruwatari on the bus, reported the relay scandal to the education board, and replaced Koizumi's camp instructions with the survival game rules. Most importantly, Ryo created and manipulated the ranking site itself. He manufactured crises to prove how easily students would obey a meaningless hierarchy and how much suffering the system could produce. Now that the ranks have collapsed, he believes his goal is complete. Ryo prepares to end his own life, but Ayako stops him. Destroying the system will mean nothing if he also destroys himself. Masamitsu brings the old diary into class and begins a public trial of Ayako. Rina, AI, Ryota, and Teppei still want to trust her, so Ayako agrees to answer the accusations instead of running away. Masamitsu first asks why she left high school as a teenager. 18 years earlier, Ayako saw a friend being bullied and did not know whether to intervene. Her mother, Yuriko, encouraged her to protect the girl. Ayako acted, and the bullies immediately selected her as their next target. The friend she defended kept her distance. Other students escalated the abuse and pressured Ayako to steal. Yuriko lost her job because of the trouble surrounding her daughter. Instead of recognizing her mother's sacrifice, young Ayako blamed her. She argued that none of the suffering would have happened if Yuriko had never told her to help. Ayako withdrew from school, refused to leave home, and said she wanted her mother to disappear. Yuriko took those words literally and jumped from a height. She survived, but the head injury erased her memory. For 18 years, she could not recognize her own daughter. Ayako has lived with the belief that her anger destroyed the person who tried to protect her. Asada, who had once taught Ayako, continued supporting her and helped her find work after she dropped out. Masamitsu argues that this history gives her a motive to hate schools in return for revenge. He then opens the diary. Although it was written years earlier, its pages describe events resembling Ayako's recent months. Making 100 friends, sharing lunch, solving classmates' problems, becoming class representative, creating memories, suffering a friendship crisis, and discovering what a real friend means. Masamitsu calls it a script. He suggests Ayako exposed Rina, pushed AI, and engineered every incident so she could appear as the rescuer. As suspicion spreads, Ryo expects Ayako to reveal him. She remains silent. Even after everything Ryo has done, Ayako refuses to hand a troubled student to an angry class simply to save herself. Finally, she explains the diary's real origin. Yuriko wrote it after losing her memory. In her damaged mind, Ayako remained the cheerful girl she had been before the bullying. Yuriko imagined the joyful school life she still wished her daughter could have. After Yuriko died, Asada gave the diary to Ayako. The pages contained no hatred, only the life her mother had wanted for her. Asada encouraged Ayako to return to high school, graduate, and turn that imagined future into something real. Ayako came to Kunikida High to fulfill Yuriko's final wish, not to conduct an experiment. The explanation does not completely settle the accusation that she works for Asada. Masamitsu privately calls Ayako to the rooftop and admits that he knows another person must be responsible. The ranking site existed before she enrolled, and she is clearly protecting someone. Ryo steps forward and confesses. He then forces Masamitsu and Ayako back into the classroom so everyone can hear why he did it. When Ryo entered middle school, older students bullied him without cause. His sister defended him and became the new target. The ranking system pushed her into its lowest tier, where the harassment continued until she took her own life. Ryo concluded that the caste system killed her. If Tier 1 students were treated as valuable and Tier 3 students as disposable, he would destroy the categories by making their cruelty impossible to ignore. He sees Ayako as a partner because both return to school carrying guilt for a family member. Ayako fights for her mother, while Ryo believes he fights for his sister. When Masamitsu humiliates Ayako, Ryo decides that the former Tier 1 leader must disappear along with the hierarchy. Ryo attacks Masamitsu with a knife. Masamitsu runs, but Ayako places herself between them. She tells Ryo that every person receives only one youth. If he commits an irreversible crime now, he will lose the chance to graduate just as she once did. Ryo drives the knife forward, and Ayako takes the wound meant for Masamitsu. She is rushed to the hospital and survives. Ryo is taken into juvenile custody. Asada blames himself for allowing Ayako to be treated as a spy. The truth is that his confidential observer was Akari Nagamine. As the school counselor, Akari reported conditions affecting both students and teachers. Those reports, not experiments conducted by Ayako, informed Asada's reform proposal. Class 3A realizes it condemned the person who repeatedly protected them. Masamitsu is especially ashamed because Ayako saved his life after he led the campaign against her. After leaving the hospital, Ayako withdraws from Kunikida High and moves to a quiet island. Asada still plans to abolish the homeroom system, which would dissolve Class 3A before its members can graduate together. The students refuse to accept either loss. They occupy parts of the school and demand that the administration preserve their class. Masamitsu apologizes directly to students he once abused, and they cover his face with drawings as a messy form of reconciliation. Police end the occupation, but the class immediately begins another campaign. They make posters, sing together, appear on television, and use every available method to ask Ayako to return. Their goal is no longer to preserve a rank. They want to graduate with the classmate who taught them to live without one. On the day the class structure is supposed to be abolished, Ayako walks into the ceremony. Her classmates celebrate, but she has also returned to defend the group. She asks Asada and the education officials to reconsider. The students prove that a classroom can become destructive when hierarchy controls it, but it can also become a community when people accept responsibility for one another. The officials reverse the decision. Ryo later returns after completing his juvenile rehabilitation, giving him another chance to finish the youth he nearly threw away. The class creates a new school diary for Ayako. Instead of Yuriko's imagined memories, it contains the real days they shared. They eat ice cream, take photo booth pictures, watch Ryota and Teppei perform, and sit together for lunch without checking who belongs at which table. Former Tier 1 and Tier 3 students now appear in the same photographs. Ayako graduates at last, completing her mother's wish and replacing 18 years of guilt with memories she chose to live. That is all for today's drama recap. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share. I will see you in the next one.